Thank you for joining us for another free webinar from ASTQB. Today we'll be talking about the new ASTQB certification for security testers. And the title of our presentation is Testing to Secure Your Security. Individuals pursuing ASTQB certification as a security tester are enhancing their own professionalism and value. A company employing those certified security testers is positioning itself to better weather the storms that are only going to strengthen. This webinar will show you why the new ASTQB security tester certification can help both you and your company secure your future. We are pleased to once again have a dynamic duo of ASTQB and ASTQB webinar presentation specialists, I guess. And I will let Taz and Randy introduce themselves. They are consummate professionals, and we're so lucky to have them once again for this webinar. So, gentlemen, please take it away.
Thank you, Dave. Well, this is Randy, and my name is Randall Rice. I go by Randy, so either one, just I'll answer nearly anything. It's my pleasure to be here today. Taz and I we were the leaders of the working group to develop the Advanced Security Tester syllabus, and we're both on the board of ASTQB, a board of directors on that. And you know, security testing to us is a real area of not only focus but of passion, because we see the need, and in fact that's what prompted the whole development of the syllabus, was because we see the need, like many people do daily, of the security of breaches and events that are happening. I've been in IT systems now, building and testing, for just about 40 years. It's kind of incredible to think about all that, but I've been doing testing as a specialty since 1988, and consulting on my own in that field since 1990. And I get around the world doing this kind of thing, speak at conferences, and consult with a lot of different size organizations, different industries, and that kind of thing. So this is not something that I just write about, but it's also something that I actually practice. I'm going to throw it over to Taz for his quick introduction.
Thank you, Randy. Taz Daughtry here. I actually can top Randy on that. I have been creating software unquality since 1982, when I began as a programmer. Worked in various areas of software quality, a stint with the Cybersecurity Information Analysis Center, affiliate with the Department of Defense, and have been teaching in the InfoSec master's degree program online for James Madison University with their online master's degree program. And as Randy said, we are both directors on the board of directors of the American Software Testing Qualification Board. Today, we basically want to attempt to look at three particular areas of the discussion, the first of which is going to be motivational, probably the one that will have the least difficulty in convincing you of that there are some real challenges in achieving information security. It's really an ongoing challenge, battle. We will then talk about how software testing can contribute to assuring information security and improving information security, and then specifically the focus for the specific things we're going to be talking about today will be if a security tester is certified, what benefits you would achieve from that. So we hope that you will in fact learn how to identify and think about how you're going to deal with information security challenges, the ways in which those challenges can be addressed through the practice of security testing, the wide range of approaches, and then specifically the benefits that will come as individuals are certified as security testers within the scheme that the ASTQB, the International Software Testing Qualification Board, has recently established. So I'll start off talking about, obviously, all of the kinds of disasters that occur almost all too frequently. This is just some summary logos over the last several years of some of the largest breaches, both in terms of the information that is revealed, confidential information, personal data, computer passwords, credit card accounts, medical information across a wide range of commercial entities, payment systems, medical facilities, and the like. And all of those clearly indicate that if the problems of information security are not only maintaining, but they're actually getting much worse over time, and we're hearing more and more disaster stories. Two specific ones that have happened fairly recently, as you'll see, deal with your own government entities. In the case of the Internal Revenue Service, essentially victim of its own attempt to be helpful, there was an application dealing with letting people to get a transcript of their own tax records, but of course anything can be gamed or can be used maliciously, and so in fact there's a pretty disastrous results. I think we've got that in the next reveal here. Nope. Basically, large numbers of tax records that were exposed, and increasingly more and more. The sad thing is some of these things were known for months to years, and the numbers keep getting worse. So they keep coming back, and I think RS released about 4 separate alerts to say that first we thought so many millions, and then so many more individuals had had their records exposed. Office of Personnel Management is a classic one in which what's characterized as a lax security culture led to the revealing of literally millions of records of not only government employees but contractors. And then, of course, this week.
That's right. And now we have a new contender that emerges up, which being Yahoo. By the way, the numbers that Taz was needing that was not revealed on the PowerPoint slide for some odd reason. I'm not sure why, but that IRS breach it impacted over 724,000 taxpayer accounts, which is really large, and it happened for over 17 months, and that's going to come into play here as I talk about Yahoo. And the lax security culture of OPM impacted more than 22 million people, and the significant takeaway from that is that there were a lot of root cause findings that came out of that, and eventually the head of the agency resigned over that, which we'll talk about. One of the key impacts here is that usually responsibility goes all the way up to the top. So now we have this new bit of information, a news story that came out, I think, late last week about in the situation with Yahoo, over 500 million user accounts stolen in 2014. And, you know, really one of the earliest data breaches that happened was out in California. And it affected something like, I think, 200,000 people, and it actually prompted a lot of the laws that we see today about when you need to report a security breach and such. And at the time that happened, I thought, wow, that's a bunch of people. But 500 million, you know, with worldwide impact is just astounding. Can't even hardly wrap your mind around that. And the thing about it is these were stolen in 2014 at some point. We're not exactly sure. A lot of details haven't come out about it, but just being discovered, I believe, back in August, and I think it was even kind of that there was a waiting period before they said anything then, because it was found not by Yahoo, but someone else who found the data for sale on one of the dark sites that, you know, profit in these kind of things. And the thing about this attack also that was kind of interesting was that, yeah, they said there's no credit card information or payment information or anything like that stolen, which doesn't surprise me because really when you're in your Yahoo account, many times you really don't reveal that information anyway. But the real crown jewels there are the passwords, and even though they're encrypted, once you have the email address, then you can get in sometimes to the passwords if the passwords aren't secure enough. We'll talk about that in just a second too. But also, the answers to challenge questions were revealed. So now, if you know someone's Yahoo email address and you know the answer to the challenge questions, well, you can reset the password. You know, it's not hard to do, and plus you can probably figure out what some of the other passwords are that a person might have. And this is one of those situations that was kind of a really bad timed one for Yahoo because there's a acquisition in process right now by Verizon of Yahoo. And you know, a lot of things when it comes to acquisitions and mergers and all that are based on your customer base and how many accounts you have and users you have and that kind of thing. And there's an estimate that about 5% of users have left Yahoo because of the incident. And if they have lost that maybe 5 to 10 million fewer users, then that's going to lower the value of the company, actually. But there's also another impact. So that devaluing alone could be $100 to $200 million. But if this follows the same pattern as some of these other breaches that Taz was mentioning, that the typical cost of the security breach itself will be between $100 to $200 million by the time all the lawsuits and all the fines and all of that have been settled out. It could be rather costly, and so you know, when you think about, gee, you know, how much money do we put into something like this, into security, then that's kind of the thing that you're balancing out is, well, what would a security breach cost us? And so it's not just Yahoo, right? We've seen these other companies, and it doesn't even have to be a large company before, you know, it starts to impact your reputation and the level of trust that people have. Now, here's another thing to think about in this context, though. So the passwords that were stolen in Yahoo were encrypted, they say. We really don't know a lot more besides what they're releasing right now, but one interesting factoid, according to Gartner, is that about 50% of users use the same passwords for multiple sites and accounts. So, you know, that's understandable. It's not good practice. In fact, it's really bad practice. But, you know, over time, you have probably hundreds of different accounts that you're logging into. And to remember hundreds of different passwords is almost impossible. So without a password manager tool or something, you're left with pencil and paper to write that down. And so instead of going through all that hassle or having a password management tool, many people just resort to something that they can remember all the time. Now, there's a lot of cyber security companies that do these surveys and stuff for, you know, they use password auditing tools to go out and see in various clients that they deal with which passwords are actually in use. By the way, that's why you can test this. If you're a security tester, is that there are tools that will allow you to be alerted on a system about weak passwords. If for some reason the password policy is not being enforced programmatically, then you can always kind of use this as a way to check up on this. But anyway, stunningly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the #1 password in use, followed closely by the #2 choice of password. And so when you think about that, you know, it's user behavior that's such an issue here. And you know, like I said, even though there's no banking information stolen in the Yahoo breach, the challenge questions and answers are still enough to allow people to reset their own passwords, or for a hacker rather, to reset someone's password.
So we're never going to hear the end of all of these stories, and it really raises the question, why is it so hard to have security in this case? Why haven't we figured this out? It turns out that one of the key ideas is the weakest link in the chain is the human side. And that's one reason, talk about the motivation that we had in looking at having a broad personal certification, broadly based certification on security testing, is that almost every other certification or best practice about testing almost exclusively deals with something called penetration testing. Well, penetration testing is meant to see how hard it is for some outsider to break into your system, but you're overlooking the majority of the problems you have if most of the breaches are because of internal weaknesses, either insider threats, people who are socially engineered to give away information, people who pick up USB sticks and, hey, what happens when I stick this into my computer? Lose all our centrifuges that way. And so essentially, if we always deal with the human aspect, and the humans are not properly trained and reinforced and evaluated, then simply looking at what an outsider might be able to do in the absence of that is neglecting the majority of the problems that we have. And so it is a big issue, and it has to be attacked in a number of different ways. It's also a very novel idea. If you look at this next quadrant models here, basically we've got a 2x2 matrix in which we want to talk about why do defects get into software and who encounters those defects. That lower left-hand quadrant you see marked reliability has been a classic area that software quality folks have been interested in. And that's because we've been focused on people that accidentally make mistakes, inject defects in their software, and then some other user stumbles across them, and we encounter those defects, and we try to, once we found them, try to remove them, and that's been often the issue in terms of software quality, or specifically software reliability. But if you look at the other chart, the other quadrants are really the issues of security, because we now have folks who either are intentionally injecting defects. They may do this maliciously because they want to put in backdoors or whatever, or people do this on purpose knowing that they don't do the most secure thing, and yet it's a trade-off. Let's make sure that we make it easy for people to sign in by not requiring them to have their passwords being very strong, or changing their passwords very often, or let's not do various types of authentication. So those trade-offs may in fact also intentionally put in some defects. But look on the right-hand side of this chart, there are people that they're looking for these defects. And so the security issue is really about all the other quadrants that we've not normally thought about, where these malicious actors are either finding defects that were put in accidentally, or putting in defects that they put in intentionally, or defects that were put in, or at least weaknesses, vulnerabilities in security that were put in because people didn't think security was as important as something else, such as ease of use. So it's a very different kind of issue, and a much broader issue than we've often been thinking about it in terms of software quality. It's also a very complex issue, and if you think about the timing, we've already mentioned several of these instances. The Yahoo case, they were infiltrated over 2 years ago. A number of these went undetected for a long time. So whatever vulnerability, either accidentally or deliberately, gets put into the system, many weeks, months, even years may pass before we detect the vulnerability. And then once the owner or the user of the system is aware of the vulnerability, it's not an instant thing to fix a patch, to find a way in which to fix the system. And then I think one of the really saddest things, and one of the ways in which people are really not using proper procedures is once the patches are known and available and they're provided maybe to a user community, it may take an extremely long time before the patch gets applied. So there certainly is a case for not knowing there's a problem, but knowing that there is a problem and there is a solution to the problem really means there's another lag time before people apply the patch. And so all of those are ways in which there are vulnerabilities that will be in place literally for many months typically.
Hey, Taz,
yeah.
I might just jump in here for just a second. And, you know, there's a big concern that's kind of been traditional over, I don't know, at least probably the last 15 years or so, about the thing known as a zero-day exploit, where the exploit is actually out there, it's known about, maybe it's in a new version of software, or maybe it's a new virus. Typically, it's a new virus, and the antivirus tools don't have it in their databases yet, so they can't be aware of it, right? And so everyone traditionally has been concerned with these zero-day viruses, but as Taz is saying, that this has a very long tail to it, okay? And if you look at the data of how long someone actually can remain undetected on networks, it's not a matter of hours or days or weeks, it's a months. I think the average time right now is somewhere around 12 to 14 months, something in that. The numbers constantly change. Yeah, they're constantly changing there. And then it's even more troubling that many of these, like in the Yahoo case, were not detected for months, maybe even years. And so, anyway, it is a very, very long tail that we see here.
Well, one last piece of fear to put in you here is that it's really difficult to think about if you're going to test against security requirements or test for security. Security requirements would be the flip side of saying, here's what the system shall do, and we'll enumerate the things the system shall not do. But because we can't think of all the things the system might do, there's a much wider range of unacceptable behavior that if you simply test against what we would call security requirements, you're missing many, many of these areas. And that also leaves you very vulnerable. And to wrap up this section, finally, without, again, having to put too fine a point on it, basically someone is responsible. They have a duty to safeguard the information. And if it's your organization and you're negligent in that way, we've already talked about how there will be cost, actual literal monetary cost, and reputational cost, loss of business, and a large number of smaller companies go out of business within a fairly short time after a major breach. You don't want to make the newspaper, you don't want to make the evening news, and ultimately there's accountability, and accountability will typically go to the top of the organization. That's also where the organization needs to have the understanding and the authorization and the investment to do the right thing by security. And so we want to go to the second portion of today's presentation to talk about how testing might help in dealing with some of these issues, and specifically how security testing can address some of this. It's a confidence builder. Basically, there are a number of ways in which doing testing in general, and specifically doing security testing, is a great exercise to clarify what's expected. Going through the planning process can be almost as significant and helpful as doing the testing, because you do your risk assessment, you begin to think about what the consequences are, and then essentially when you conduct the testing, to the extent that it's systematic and it's well focused and it's based on a risk analysis, then you're able to show due diligence. You can show that the system works the way it's supposed to work, and when it doesn't work in the way it's supposed to work, that helps you identify the vulnerabilities and to deal with the threats that are involved. And testing doesn't happen just in what's called the testing phase. This is a fairly generic life cycle model. Sort of a spiraling sort of model, but there are different phases from the conceive of a system. You specify requirements, design, implement, integrate, and maintain the system and continue to evolve it. And there's a place for testing and security testing in all of those stages. So don't focus just on the idea that there's something called a testing phase in which we're going to focus on the testing side of it, but all of these things are helpful at all stages in the life cycle, and there's a major portion of the syllabus for the certification we're going to address in a few minutes that deals with how security testing fits in across the entire development life cycle, whichever life cycle model you have. Everything from a classic waterfall through a spiral, an agile, even the so-called DevOps. We're now talking about people talking about DevSecOps, development, security, and operations. All those things can be folded together. You can slice and dice them in a variety of ways, but there's a role to have a contribution from security testing and test planning and test conduct, test reporting in all of those phases. So we want to see that security testers can help in a variety of ways. Obviously, the thing you're protecting are called your assets. The assets you have may be valuable to you in one sense, and you not be aware of how they're valuable to others in another sense. So you may be protecting certain kinds of information, but some malicious user has a different sense of how they might want to use them. They may want your computing power. The Internet of Things has just basically come to the fore this past week in the most massive ever distributed denial of service attack. Cribs on Security, a website that does security analysis, was taken offline by a massive attack, which I think included a number of thermostats, and I'm not sure if any toasters were involved. But basically, the very large number, the very huge mass of attack queries that were made to that website to attack it and to bring it down came from people who used other people's computing capabilities, not because they were stealing any information. They were just stealing pure raw computing power to attack, and that's been done for hacktivists, that's been done by nation states, that's been done in a military sense to bring down the government resources in one country because a hostile country wants to attack them. So there are a whole wide range of ways that people will value your assets, maybe not the thing that you're trying to protect. And then obviously risk, threats, whether or not your policies, procedures, and controls are adequate. How do you know? They look good until someone starts thumping on them, and then we can identify the vulnerabilities and the ways in which is your system really have the detection. As Randy says, if people can lurk around for months to years, is your detection system, are your tripwires in place? Certain types of tests can help reveal whether you can detect, whether you can defend, and whether you can recover. So all of those are ways in which we believe that security testing and well-trained and competent security testers can contribute. And so that brings us to the portion where we want to talk about the value of certification of security testers.
Yeah, and Taz, before we get into that little section, just a little bit of context here. That, you know, when we were looking at, okay, what are we going to put in the syllabus, what are we not going to put in at the advanced level, we actually started out this journey developing an expert level syllabus, and it was decided, and I think it was a good decision, to build the lower tier first of the advanced level security tester. And there are so many angles on this that we could take. And, you know, for some people, security testing means that it's strictly policy related and procedure related and control related. For some people, they see it, as we said earlier, kind of like solely penetration testing. Some people see it as almost solely social engineering. Well, we try to cover as many of those bases as we can. We give a good treatment to actually everything you're seeing on this slide, because we feel it's a holistic kind of effort that's needed. And just like testing in general, security testing is not going to find all the vulnerabilities, because we can't test everything. So there's that space in there where, yeah, you'll see that in security testing we share some of the very same constraints that we do with software testing in general. And in fact, that's why the prerequisite is in place of having foundation level, so that someone wanting to achieve the certification will be aware of those things. So I'll just tackle that before we get into the certification aspects. But here you go, Taz.
Yeah, and the other question really is, what is the path we're looking at? Are we looking at people that are testers trying to understand how to do the security testing, or people that are security experts to understand how to do testing? And we think we can meet it in either direction. As Randy indicated, this is sort of a roadmap of what the ASTQB, International Software Testing Qualification Board, has as a range of certifications. Your foundation at the bottom is a certified foundation level tester, which is basically the rudiments of testing, the core vocabulary, just essentially the commonalities across all types of testing. And it's the entry point for all of the other certifications. We have then escalate to a middle tier, which has advanced level, and then, as Randy alluded to, a higher level of expert, and you progress through those stage by stage. And you see on the right-hand side, the so-called specialist categories include some extensions to the foundation dealing with particular areas such as the automotive sector, or aspects of testing like usability or model-based. And then there are those that deal with special areas of concern, such as our own security tester, and we're also seeing test automation. Just for your information, over on the far left side, there is a whole branch that deals with agile methodology and how testing is done in the agile arena, and then the core up the middle deals with a variety of analytical and managerial issues and process improvement. And I think, again, as Randy has alluded, there probably will be, in the next pass that we make, an effort to develop an expert level for security. But currently we're right at the point of saying that once you have understood the rudiments of what we would call the foundation level, if the thing that you wanted to do is to begin the advanced treatment of security testing, you should go that path. And it should not be either troublesome for someone who is not necessarily a tester. We certainly don't want to jump right in and try to do security testing without having the foundational issues and understanding the basic vocabulary and methodologies. And obviously people that are going through other stages of certification may want to add in security testing. So I can see a number of ways that people will say, well, how do we do security testing in the agile environment? How do we do it if we're dealing with the automotive or some of the other sectors that are to be involved? But what we're looking at right now is an advanced level certification in the specialist stream within the ASTQB for personnel certification as a security tester. So what does that get you? What do we expect of security testers? We have some expectations that were set in terms of what contributions will be able to be made. If we're looking at security testing, again, not just testing against security requirements, not just penetration testing, not just picking up any one particular subset, but the whole range of what is appropriate, given your context, given your assets, given your threats, given the risk, the consequences, what is going to be adequate. If someone already has some testing, this certified tester should be able to analyze whether the testing suite that has been proposed is adequate and how it needs to be supplemented. A variety of different types of testing approaches, again, that need to be deployed. You need to have a toolkit. You want to have that hammer, but not everything is a nail, and you shouldn't be trying to use the hammer when you should be using the screwdriver or the hacksaw or the flamethrower or whatever other tools you need to have there. Certainly to understand security, you need to be able to have that basic foundation. As we said, these are the hurdles you have to get over. So before someone wants to sit for the advanced exam for security testers, you need to have already taken the certification at a foundational level, which I think it's just it's not burdensome and is the appropriate way to begin. You need to have 3 years of experience in a variety of interpretations of that, but basically this is not just a pure novices sort of attempt to go in for certification. And then you have a range. I've always appreciated the ASTQB having a range of ways that you can prepare. That's one reason, and as Randy said, we were the leads in developing the syllabus. And so the syllabus is a great foundation, a great framework for you to understand what you need to do. Obviously, when you do encourage someone to be certified as a security tester, your organization is going to be more efficient at finding and removing these vulnerabilities. And so once again, because most people think about this as one kind of testing only, like penetration testing, is a lot more you're overlooking. You're reducing the amount of risk that you bear. You basically need to show that even if you don't find everything, there's some due diligence or due care involved, and so a good systematic approach to software security testing is appropriate in that sense. And as an individual, having a certification that is independently confirmed, it's not just a self-declaration of I know this, but it's certainly a very high demand skill set and something that will improve your employability. So as I said, we work on a syllabus. Obviously, the syllabus is what you were tested against. So the certification exam, if you're not familiar with other syllabi and other certification exams, we'll touch on this. But basically, the exam is based on the syllabus. The syllabus has various areas of emphasis. There are learning objectives. Those learning objectives are mapped in proportion to the area of difficulty and how many of the questions are involved on the exam. But I want to say before we get onto that one, Randy, just also, since that's the basis for the exam, the syllabus is the basis for exam preparation. So there will be, as there have been with the other ISTQB certifications, there will be training that's available. The training that is accredited is, again, a process that the national boards evaluate the adequacy of the training material and the trainers. But because you're not required to take a training, or certainly not necessarily an accredited training, even though that is a big plus having that vetted, you can do self-study. And so basically being able to pick up the syllabus and take advantage of some other information that's out there freely available on the website, such as the sample questions and sample answers, then you can prepare yourself if that's the route that you choose to go. So as I said, there will be learning objectives. The learning objectives are at different levels. The K level, the knowledge level, if people are familiar with the Bloom's taxonomy. You have everything from a level 1, which is basically just pure recall, to a level 6 where you're doing some real synthesis. And to be at advanced level, we basically are moving beyond the more rudimentary recall type of questions, definitions, things that you'd have in a foundation course, in a foundation exam, to the intermediate sorts of levels. And as I said, there are examples of those questions available on the website and solution sets for them as well, and that is the basis for what's in the exam.
And Taz, I would also want to kind of jump in at this point and maybe address a question that may be rolling around in people's minds about the exercises with regard to the learning objectives. Right now, the way that the syllabus is written, each of the K3s and K4s can be achieved through really non-computer based exercises. They're either planning exercises, or they're designing of test kind of exercises, or they're analysis exercises. We don't have, for example, penetration test exercises where you actually would go against a system or a website or something, and we did that for a reason. Although we're not preventing a training provider from doing that, that would be totally their call if they wanted to have that. But it does introduce a whole new level of complexity and even liability for doing those kinds of exercises. You really have to be careful. Take it as someone that's been training on this for 15 years, that you know what we used to could train on in the past and look at examples of things online. You don't want to take a whole class there these days. There's just too much liability involved. You'd probably be violating a company's access policies anyway by doing so. So we purposefully made the exercises where they could be achieved without actually trying to penetrate into a system.
Now, there may be more hands-on components once we get something to an expert level, because then it's not going to be just a paper and pencil sort of thing. So there's more demonstrative aspects of that, but I think that's appropriate at this level. Thank you. All right, this is the proverbial eye chart, and it's just simply a single snapshot and a little screenshot across the 9 areas. The red boxes at the top are in fact the 9 broad categories, which are going to break out on subsequent slides, ranging from topics just on the basis of security testing all the way to the other side where we're talking about standards and industry trends. But the view here is that there are subcategories from 2 to 7 or 8 subcategories that deal with how this is broken out. Obviously, a good bit of detail in terms of if there were different mechanisms, different life cycle phases, different processes involved. So all this is the information that that's posted, and this is just a visual representation of the outline. Just show you on the next several slides the names and just a few words. Obviously, we need to talk a little bit about what we mean by testing, what we mean by security testing, what the purposes are, what goals you can set, what strategies you can use, and then the testing process unique to security testing. So each of these has a number of subcategories in it. Clearly, as I mentioned, point number 4 here is whatever application life cycle you have, there's appropriate for security testing to be involved. So obviously, evaluating the testability of requirements, analyzing poor design choices, obviously implementation details where people have programmed vulnerabilities or have overlooked. There are a lot of lists of things, and there are a number of references that are in the syllabus and in other learning materials. You have a lot of groups that have the top 10 or the top 20 vulnerabilities. It's interesting that almost all of those focus on something that's very easy to observe directly in the programming, in the coding. And I think from the point of view of most software defects that you have, not all or some, certainly not the most difficult security problems are going to happen not in coding, but because people have made bad decisions in design or have made bad decisions even in terms of the requirements. And obviously, as you go through your life cycle of testing itself, you need to be able to recommend results, report results, and recommend improvements that need to be made. As I said, there's a good section here on all the variety of mechanisms. I think we enumerate, what is it now? It's section 5, 8 or 9 different mechanisms in terms of, again, not in the detail of that you're going to have in each case, but realize there is going to be some encryption. There's going to be data obfuscation. There's going to be any number of other mechanisms that are used, and so the whole section on how you identify what those mechanisms are and how you test against them. And then point 6, as we've already said, the human factors are so crucial. How do you test to see if adequate training has been done? How do you do tests to see if people will resist all of the kinds of social engineering that might be thrown at them? And then finally, be aware of testing tools, and then keep up to date with standards and industry trends. There are a number out there. Each standard may be applicable to a particular industry or to a particular type of application area or type of software system, and things changing over time. And so obviously what you prepare for today, you'll discover tomorrow we've overlooked something else. It's always one of these old spy versus spy. It was a cartoon, what was that, Mad Magazine? And it's always the offense that's always a step ahead of the defense. And so one of the things you have to be aware of is where can you go? Where can you go to websites? Where can you go to industry groups? Where you can go to conferences? What publications can you read that help you stay on top of the sorts of trends that will be the next stage of problem that you need to deal with? Okay, Randy, what do we got? The exam.
Let's talk about the exam now. I meant to give credit to Taz earlier at the very outset of the presentation for doing the heavy lifting and putting this PowerPoint presentation together. And so when I saw this picture of the exam, at first I didn't get it, and I told Taz, well, I've never been on the receiving end of a breathalyzer test before. I actually have never been on the giving end of one either, but so. But anyway, that would be one form of exam that you wouldn't probably want to encounter. The exam for the security tester, advanced security tester, is you have 45 multiple choice questions. You have 2 hours to complete those. Now, if you're familiar with any of the other advanced certifications, like in the core, the advanced core as we call it, you'll know that the types of questions you get at the advanced level are more scenario-based in nature. So they can be maybe half a page to a page long for that matter. But we do have the sample exams available on the ASTQB website. Now, the other thing that makes an advanced exam a little bit different from the foundation is that you have weighted question scoring. That you need a 65% pass, just like you do with foundation, a 65% score. However, once again, the more difficult questions get the higher number of points. So it's not simply 1 for 1 point like it is at foundation. So that's the deal about the exam. It's fairly straightforward. It's all, you can either take it paper-based or electronically at a Criterion exam center. So I'm going to hop into a few frequently asked questions, and I also want to put the invitation out there. We're almost at the end of the presentation, so if you have any specific questions you'd like to ask, there's a question window, and I believe the chat is also enabled, but if you have a question, just pop it into the question pane, and Dave maybe can help facilitate that a little bit, but we'll check it here in just a second. But let me go through a few of the frequently asked questions, okay? First one, is the exam available now? Yes, it is. And it's been available for some time. So all you got to do is go out to the ASTQB website, and that's astqb.org. We have a picture of it. Hang on, let me get through this. There you go. And just go to the registration area. Now, of course, before you register for the exam, something that you probably really need to do is go to the library and get the syllabus if you haven't done so already, and also take the sample exam before you actually put a date and time to register for the certification exam. Now, one little logistical thing that I just thought of that I really need to mention to you is that when you do register for an advanced exam, you have to submit evidence of your experience, and it's 3+ years in the software testing field. It's not security testing specifically, but it's software testing or a related field. So you could be a developer, business analyst, or whatever with 3 years experience, get your CTFL, then you have qualified to be able to take the electronic advanced level exam. Now, one other thing too is if you took your CTFL exam pencil and paper, then that's something else the back office at ASTQB is going to need to be aware of, and there's instructions on how to do all this in the registration part, but as we call it, there's a switch that needs to be flipped in the back end of the web assessor system to allow you to even register for that exam. It's going to they have to make sure that you have your CTFL and that you have 3+ years experience. The other big question is, when will courses be available? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm branching out here way too much. One other thing I forgot to mention about the exam availability. These are available through Criterion electronic exam systems or centers across the country, actually around the world. However, if you had a large group, that you could get a pencil and paper exam administered at your company. I highly recommend you do the electronic exam because you get the results right away, and especially if you have a small group, it's probably more workable. And there's, like I say, Criterion exam centers in just about every major city and most secondary size cities. I don't know how the best way to say that. There are certain areas of the country where you may have to drive for a while, but that's kind of rare. Now, big question, when will courses be available? I expect we'll start seeing courses drop in and be accredited probably in the next month or two. There's a natural lag time that occurs between when a syllabus is released and when courses are available, because for one thing, it takes a while for training providers to write the courses, and the other thing is it takes a while for them to be accredited. And it's not necessarily a complex process to write the course from the accreditation standpoint, but it can be a tedious one in that you have to make sure you get the right coverage, you get examples, you get exercises all in the right places. And in my experience, it takes me about 2 times longer to write a certification course than it does a non-certification type of course. So I expect these will be coming out fairly soon, although I don't know of anyone out there yet with one, but like I say, they're probably going to start appearing before long, and that's all I will say as a training provider myself. I'm not going to say anything else. So why do I need foundation level certification? We've already really addressed that. Is because it covers some of the basics that we need to cover, but we don't have time to cover in the advanced. There are some things, just basic general testing knowledge dealing with risk, test design, those kind of things that you need. Another thing is that people may be concerned that they don't have a test team that focuses on security, but they do have a security administration team. Would this certification still be helpful? And to that I would say yes, greatly helpful, because your security admin team may do a little bit of testing, they may do no testing. It's kind of unusual to find a security administration team that does a lot of testing, and so you may be that person in your company, or if your company doesn't have a security tester, then this is your chance to be a value-added part of the organization to do that. So once again, all the things that we've been talking about are available on the ASTQB website. The syllabi for all the certifications, but the security tester is here. The glossary terms are in a searchable format in the glossary. This is where the sample exams are. Registration, as I mentioned earlier, is where you register. So I'm going to pass it back over to you, Taz.
Well, this is just where we said what we're going to say. We talked about challenges. We had enough horror stories. We talked about how security testing can contribute, and specifically individual security testers becoming certified. So the real question is, did you learn that? Did you hear that? Did you, in fact, get a sufficient appreciation of how to identify those challenges, how you can address those challenges, or how testing can help address those challenges, and the benefits that you have? So just for the sake of having the last few minutes, what questions do we have? Dave, have you collected anything, or are there some things that we need to talk about that some people are interested in that we haven't yet addressed?
I have a couple of nuts and bolts types of questions related to the exam itself, and then we can go a little bit broader in the time that we have. But so there was a question about how much the exam costs, which is $200. So I can answer that part. Does the certification need to be renewed?
No, none of the ASTQB certifications have renewals on them. Is that correct, Randy?
I think the experts do, but
right.
Certainly not for the foundation and advanced. Yeah,
Which
so
which in effect really the point is not necessary. And this one you can imagine that the specifics are going to get outdated. The generalities are certainly there, the principles are there, but as we say in that very last section of the syllabus where you have to keep up with the evolving technologies and the evolving threats, if you've basically figured out the way that you want to do your testing and you know what the threats are going to be, that's going to get pretty quickly outdated, as well as will some of the emerging standards that people are going to expect. I was just in another webinar before we came on this one that the Homeland Security people are putting on. They've got a certification tool, and that tool pulls in about 24 to 36 different standards. Some of them are industry specific, and some of them are changing all the time. So there's a core of this that is timeless and will serve you as a foundation, and just don't rest on your laurels because you've got the certification. Even if you're not required to have it recertified, you need to keep fresh, and you need to stay on the cutting edge of things.
Right. No, great answer. Someone asked, did I hear you say the 3 years of experience before taking the exam does not have to be in security testing specifically?
Right, that's correct. It's helpful to have some background in security testing, since we do not have a foundation level security tester. That there's more reasons for that than I have time to go into at this point. So you'll find that it would be beneficial maybe to have some background in security testing. However, I think we did try to anticipate that in the syllabus, and I think we cover a lot of the even some of the basics of things that we're covering at the advanced level. We kind of build some context in there, so you're not going to be totally in the dark. But as far as the official prerequisite goes, it's just like the advanced core certifications, that it doesn't even have to be actually experience in the testing field. It can be in a related field in IT. One example of this might be, let's say you're an auditor, or you've been doing business analysis or something like that. Those are kind of some of the more fringe areas that would be included, but they would probably qualify, I think.
Yeah, there could be people coming in from different routes, some coming from testing and some coming from security or other aspects. So as long as you have enough familiarity to know what code is and what lifecycle development are and some of those sorts of issues, I think that's reasonable.
So it's safe to say that someone does not have to be a tester to benefit from the certification, but they do have to still achieve the foundation level and have 3 years of related experience of some sort before they are eligible to take this exam?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Good. This is very helpful. I want to note before we give final thank yous and sign off here that this webinar will be available in recorded format, and that will be posted on the ASTQB website later this week. We will send out an email very broadly to everybody in the mailing list to let you know that it is available, and we'll give you specific location of where that can be found. I highly encourage you. I mean, this is some great information, Randy and Taz. You've done a wonderful job on this, and I think it's important that you share this recording with other employees broadly, colleagues in other companies for that matter, because it talks not only about the certification specifically, which is of course great, but it really makes the case for why everyone needs to be aware and conscious of security, if for no other reason, taking it to your boss to say, hey, you know what, this helps us reduce our risk as a company and the liability that we face. And honestly, it's very good for your career as well, as these gentlemen noted. So Randy and Taz, thank you very much for once again providing a stellar webinar, and I thank you for doing that.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
And I would invite everyone to look for announcements of upcoming webinars. We hope you can join us again. And as noted, we'll be recording this and posting it on the ASTQB website. If you've missed any previous ASTQB webinars, you'll find them on the website as well. Again, that's at astqb.org. And with that, thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Good night, John Boy.